other electoral offences.
Well, I just, if Claire still has a question, you might also take that along. On the eve of the supplementary elections, at least in some other locations, there were reports of emergency projects, boreholes suddenly being sunk and, all kinds of sop, as it were, being used to mollify whatever dissent there was amongst the voters in those areas. Did Sokoto witness that as well, to say quickly, tar their roads, clear their drains, supply them with exercise books if they were in school?
In Sokoto, there was nothing new, only that the political parties relocated, most of the political party agents relocated to those areas, and the major areas are far away from the capital city of Sokoto, that is Kebbi and Gada, Goronyo, Ilela. But there was no any major any project being done within that period. But the political parties relocated to those areas to campaign and get votes for their parties.
Rahman Usman Jibrila, we'll just pause you and take a last question from Bright Ebutre from Enugu. Bright, I'm wondering if your camera lenses were bright enough to also capture, sites of vote trading, otherwise known as see and buy.
Hello, please, can you take that question again?
Sorry, the connection is quite not clear. I was asking if your camera lenses were bright enough to capture, scenes of vote trading, Kingsley, and not just Kingsley, that has been referred to as see and buy.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't record any, although we cannot actually rule it out completely, but we did not actually record any scene of vote buying and the likes. We only slightly had an issue in the issue, like I said earlier, where the AA House of Assembly candidate, Ms. Ngozi Obiefule, complained to us that some thugs were trying to bully her party agents and probably people who were supposed to vote for her. Those were the issues we had earlier, but eventually the police was able to get the place calm and voting continued. And eventually she, based on the result that was announced yesterday, she won.
Ocho, our correspondent, joined us via Skype and, of course, reporting on the supplementary elections in Owerri. I tell you, that's in Imo State. We'd like to thank you, Bright, for being with us on the program this morning. We also would like to thank Abdul Rahman Jibrila, who joined us from our Sokoto Network Center. Abdul Rahman, thank you for being with us on the program this morning. Okay, Claire, we'll have our last set of tweets to take right now. Amagbola has this tweet. It says, the just concluded supplementary elections have clearly shown how desperate Nigerian politicians can be. Now, it tells the extent to which they may go to realize their ambition. But the question is, for how long can you continue with this? How many Nigerians are we going to lose in order for people to realize their political ambition? Ad hoc staff have been victims of attacks and kidnapped, and even the academia, who were contracted, members of the academia, haven't been left out of the assaults. Whither do we go from here?
Okay, Kingsley, I have this tweet from Ibrahim Modu Aji, and it reads, "It is better to disenfranchise voters and declare a winner than declaring it inconclusive, because violence that will come up with the supplementary election is unquantifiable. Now, prevention of lives is supreme, even in the Nigeria's constitution." And it says, "As NTA rounds up programs in 2019 general elections, kudos to NTA technical crews, presenters, and reporters for a wonderful job. NTA is truly the largest network in Africa. Maintain tempo." And just as we were taking the tweets, Esther Uzoma joined us, but we will soon introduce her. Kingsley.
All right. Well, we just would like to take, our last guest, who is joining us. Of course, is a fairly familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. Esther Uzoma, of course, who is the deputy of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. Yes. Esther Uzoma, of course, you've observed the 2019 elections. Yes. The off-cycle elections. Just one point, in addition to whatever else you may wish to say with regard to the supplementary polls last Saturday. Some are now arguing, including the civil society situation room, that rather than being an aid to determining who a clear winner is in an election, supplementary elections have now, as it were, created an uneven playing field for our elections. Your thoughts?
I speak in my capacity as Esther Uzoma. I do not speak for the Situation Room now. The philosophy behind the margin of lead principle is a roguish thing. Why? Because they said the margin of lead between the two leading candidates, if it is less than the number of registered voters, pursuant to, or annulled votes, pursuant to clause 26 and then 53 of the Electoral Act. The clause there, the catch is registered voters. And we know that the number of registered people who turn out, registered voters, first of all, not all of them collect their PVCs. And secondly, not every registered voter turn up for elections. So why are we making the margin of lead, the differential between the number, why are we letting it side and side by the number of registered voters? It is a curious philosophy. And it is the bet of all these inconclusive episodes we are seeing. It is a roguish thing. We must revisit it.
And in its place?
And in its place, let's take clear winners. Let us take clear, because in that margin of lead principle, INEC now said, look at the scenarios of what will happen, and then they said, one of it is that if there is violence, foisted, or refusal to use smart card readers, then you just the PO will record 0 and then declare winner. But this philosophy of margin of lead, you appreciate what I'm saying?
I do.
Yes, so it's a roguish thing.
Well, Esther Uzoma, thank you. Also
personal opinion.
Yeah, yes. I know you're also a lawyer.
Yes.
Look, with two issues here. One has to do with what you describe as a roguish principle of margin of lead.
Yes.
The other, of course, has to do with the cancellation of an election.
Yes.
Now, suppose, and Bayo has discussed this, suppose your opponent decides to foment trouble in your stronghold in order to take advantage of the potential cancellation of your votes. Who should therefore bear the liability for such instigation of the disruption of the electoral process?
Fantastic. That is a judicial question. It is not an administrative one. Look at the clear division of labor. What then is the duty of the judiciary? If you will make, let me tell you, cancellation violence is a matter of strict evidence. Look at the quagmire we are having now. In Chris, for instance, in the election of Chris Suba, the returning officer said he made the declaration under duress. INEC said, no, it doesn't qualify with the duress of Okorocha. We will give returning certificate of return. Have you seen the question? They cannot go in. They will not decide that question. It's a judicial one. It's not an administrative question of whether there was violence sufficient enough. It is an administrative. It's not an administrative. It's a judicial one. So what would the judiciary do?
Are you on Good Morning Nigeria? Probably a couple of weeks ago, we had the INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity and one or two other lawyers, plus another regular guest of ours from Port Harcourt, that's Festus Oguche. Oguche was talking about more judicial intervention in reviewing cases, particularly in declaring an election inconclusive. And the other guests, including Osaze Oze, were arguing that we already have too much presence of the judiciary in our elections. But if you are not, you are also apparently now arguing, and I believe so, that declaring an election to have been marred by violence should be a judicial function. Now, if the judiciary decides, okay, that violence was real, we're back to the same inconclusive thing. I say recontact. No. What will happen?
When the rules, one of the scenarios that will give place to that margin of lead principle, one of the scenarios they built in it is that if there is violence that didn't allow elections to hold, the PO will record 0 votes and proceed with the rest. But what the margin of lead is now saying that, listen, if eventually, say the PO cancelled, 12 or 2